Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Professor Mitoma. I'm the director of the Thomas J. Dodd Research Center, and it's my absolute honor and privilege to welcome you here tonight for this incredible and important program. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge that the land on which we're gathered is the occupied territories of the Rwwandan, Mashantucket Pequot, Eastern Pequot, Scaticook, Golden Hill Pagusset, and Nipmuc peoples who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. We thank them for their strength and resilience in protecting this land and strive to uphold our responsibilities according to their example. As I said, it's an absolute honor and privilege to be welcoming you all here tonight, and an especially powerful honor for me to be welcoming here our special guests, Darcis Temininga, Chantal Temininga, Charles, and Anjali Mukagila, who will later share their stories with us. It's profoundly gratifying to me personally to welcome you to the Dodd Center, and I know it will be a powerful and fitting tribute on behalf of our namesake, Thomas J. Dodd, who as Executive Trial Counsel during the International Military Tribunal at Nuremberg was among the first to reveal to the world the horrors of the Nazi crimes during the Second World War. It's incredibly important as well that we're here today on this anniversary to mark the commemoration of 25 years since the Rwandan Genocide against the Tutsi people. And I think it's important that it is a commemoration, that we are here to remember alongside you. In fact, by virtue of your experience, to remember together a co-commemoration of these events, who it's hard to imagine transpired 25 years ago, a full generation ago, so long ago that many of the students here today, it was not a part of their living memory. But part of the purpose of the Dodd Center, part of the mission of the Dodd Center, is to ensure that memory doesn't simply reside in the individual of these seminal events in the history of human rights, but are shared throughout our community in the university, our community in the state, our community in this nation, and our community in the world. Because it's in the memory, it's through the commemoration, the shared memory of these profound and tragic events, that we hope to draw some measure of education and to renew our commitment that's been articulated not so much as an actual fact, but as an aspiration to never again allow genocide in our time. And I wish I could say that in the 25 years that the Dodd Center has been working, that we've done a good job of that. Because clearly, as we look around the world, we're not collectively as a people doing a good job. So I hope, it's my sincere hope, that part of what we do tonight, part of our contribution, is to remember together these experiences that you have graciously and with sacrifice allowed us to share with you, remember them together, and to begin to recommit to that fundamental principle of never again. So I want to move quickly on to the rest of the program because we actually have a full agenda for everyone tonight. Many stories to fit in, many tales to fit in that are all equally as important. We will begin the night with a special screening of a short film created by students here at the university who have done their part to take this lesson to heart and have created a film of survival as well. And we're honored to screen it. This is a film created by students Sahil Lal, Caitlin Wolf, and Solia Puta about a member of the Yukon, what we refer to as the Yukon Nation here, José Mumukunde Alex, and we'll share that story with you in just a moment. Then we'll be privileged to welcome Professor Lorenz Greibling to give a short paper comparing the experience of genocide in Rwanda with the Holocaust. Then Tharsis Semeninga will provide a short lecture contextualizing again, the stories we are about to hear of survival, and then we will end the evening with a dialogue between myself and our four witnesses here to share their stories and their experiences of the Rwandan genocide. I do want to note, you were all passed out, they handed around cards as well. So we will have time, hopefully at the end, to take some of your questions. In the interest of streamlining the process and allowing us to make sure that we take full advantage of this opportunity, we're going to ask you to write down a question you may have. During the discussion, we'll pick those up before the end, and then we'll be able to select a few. Unfortunately, I apologize. I know we won't be able to get to all of your questions, but we'll select a few then to pose to our panelists so that they can share out. So make sure you do that during the program. And then finally, I want to end just by a few words of thanks. This program would certainly not be possible without the concerted effort of a large number of people who were able to make this special event happen. Particularly, I would like to thank Jolene Chu, who is probably still, there she is in the back, who has diligently been working hard in coordination with our own staff here at the Dodd Center, Nana Amos, and Elnara Klacheva to enable this. The entire Jehovah's Witness community who have come together to enable this to happen, and especially to the Lorenz and Laura Reibling Foundation, who have generously sponsored this event, as well as the reception that we'll have afterwards. And then also generously gifted all of the copies of Tharsis's amazing and wonderful new book, No Greater Love, which there were 50 free copies. A number of you picked up copies out there. If you were unable to, because we ran out, Lorenz and Laura have confirmed they've generously offered, if you will leave your name and your address, we will send you a copy directly as well. So thank you again, Lorenz and Laura. That was a tremendously generous offer. So with that, I would love to invite to the stage Sahil and Ketlin to introduce their film and to screen it for you. Please.
Good afternoon, Albert. How's everyone doing? All right. So my name is Sahil Wall, and this is Caitlin Love. We're recent graduates from the University of Connecticut. In spring of 2018, we enrolled in Introduction to Global Health with Dr. Cynthia Frank. Over the course of the semester, we're encouraged to draw upon our own experiences on thinking about global health issues, to contextualize them. Few stories stood out amongst others, but one student stood out from the rest. She spoke from experience, from a place of pain and hardship, but also with a calm and eloquence that seemed to inspire hope for the future. This student was Josiane Mumukunde Alex. We were all students connected by a common interest in global health and seeking out the realities of others.
Our worlds are shaped by our lived experiences and the narratives we tell about them. Stories are a powerful way to share knowledge, evoke emotion, create trust, and ignite action. They are the medium through which we teach, entertain, and express ourselves, gather, and share a sense of belonging. Listening to a story activates multiple areas of the brain, which allows us to not only process the experience for ourselves, but to share emotions as we synchronize with the storyteller's brain. Stories transcend statistics and numbers, break down the barriers that keep us from connecting to others' realities, and help us recognize the biases and false narratives we create. They remind us that human lives are fragile and delicately balanced. Each person deserves to tell their story and have it heard. It shouldn't be dictated by where they were born. During our social documentary and theory and practice course last fall, 2 falls ago, Sahil and I were presented with the task of creating a short film on a social issue of importance to us. When provided with this opportunity, we knew we couldn't pass up the chance to further explore Josiane's story, which so deeply moved us. Our documentary is entitled Kwizera, a story of hope born from resilience. Kwizera, which comes from the Kinyarwanda word for hope, tells the trying story of Josiane as a Rwandan refugee and her journey to pursue an education against all odds. It highlights her efforts to equip the next generation of Rwandans with the tools needed to succeed and move beyond their past, with her organization, Kwizera Empowerment, founded in honor of a boy named Kwizera. The story is one of resilience, hope, inspiration, and love. Chimamanda Adichie, a Nigerian novelist, warns that the single story creates stereotypes, and the problem with stereotypes is not that they are untrue, but that they are incomplete. They make one story become the only story. In capturing Josiane's story, we hope to be a part of the process of rewriting the dominant narratives surrounding refugees to show that they're not defined by their trauma, but by their resilience, perseverance, and hope for a better future.
Stories allow us to not only share and receive information, but better understand both our lives and the lives of those surrounding us. We urge you to look around the room today, to the person to your left and the person to your right. Each one of you has a unique story which has shaped who you are today, your thoughts, ideas, and perspectives. We encourage you to take that leap and be vulnerable with one another, both today and in the future, to listen to each other's stories, for you never know what you may uncover. We hope that in hearing Josiane's story will spark something in you, just like it did for us. We're thankful to Josiane for intimately welcoming us into her life, and allowing us to share a piece of her with you, and to the Dodd Center and the Riebling family for providing us with the platform to do so with this wonderful commemorative event. Without further ado, we'd like to screen our documentary for you.
My childhood growing up in Rwanda, it was beautiful. We didn't have much, but we were happy. My mom didn't get a chance to finish her education. My parents couldn't afford tuition. And when I get off school, I have to go tend to my parents. So on the side of the road, no time for homework, nothing. And I asked myself, for the rest of my life, am I going to be doing this? I realized things were changing when all of a sudden we were not allowed to go anywhere. And I remember just seeing like fear like around everyone. And one morning my mom came to wake us up and said, oh, the prison got shut. And from after that we're not allowed to go outside or even go anywhere. Genocide is this thinking that my world is better without you in it, but there is no such thing as my world. There, all of a sudden, there's this abrupt of, you we had to leave our house and go to my grandma's house, and everything happened so fast. I didn't understand why, but I had to go. The journey to refugee camp was long. There were so many challenges. All we had was what we could cut in our hands. So imagine like you walking, then you have to stop, then you have to find wood, you have to find water. And you make a meal for that day, if you are lucky to find a meal, and then you wake up, you keep going. So as a 12-year-old, it was obviously a confusion for me. And you hear refugee camp, I'm like, what is a refugee camp? I don't know, I've never seen a refugee camp, so it was all new to me. So I was just like adapting, they tell me to go fetch water, I go to fetch water. They tell me to go find wood, I go find wood. There was lack of access to anything, no hospitals, sanitation, and water. There was a lot of spread of disease, like communicable disease. There was like cholera, dysentery. Like many lives were lost during that time, and also, including my brother. When I first arrived to America, it was just a process of rebuilding. Really, it was mostly a process of trying to rebuild our lives from afresh, from zero. Started looking for jobs. I also started applying to colleges. It was challenging because I didn't know how to navigate the process, and I remember sitting in the classrooms and feeling lost and feeling overwhelmed. Now I'm in a place where I have opportunity to learn, I have all these extra resources, but at the same time, it's too much for me. I withdrew, I dropped out. It was too much for me. At Gateway Community College, and I went there. I didn't have a high school diploma, of course, so I took a placement test, and after taking placement test, I started taking classes. I remember there are times like I would get up at 6 in the morning and go to the study. I have to work a breakfast party, and at 9 or 10:30, I'll jump on my bicycle and go straight to Gateway, take classes. I just completely shut everything down and just focused on like research and volunteering and working and studying. Yeah. I never thought in my life that I could be where I am today, and I'm thankful and I'm grateful because there's so many people who didn't have those opportunities. So when I look back at my life and I look back at my experiences that have shaped me to I am today, I realized that I was lucky. I was lucky to be studying at UCAN. I was lucky to be here, to be given a chance of education, and to be pursuing my dreams.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, Josiane wanted to be with us today, but she couldn't make it due to some prior commitments. But she did want to share a few words with you, so we're going to do that on her behalf. So this is what she wrote. Good afternoon. My name is Josiane Mumukunde-Elise. I'm a recent graduate of UConn. I'm originally from Rwanda and a global health and human rights advocate. Please accept my apology for not being able to attend this important and much needed event. You're in my thoughts this evening as you're gathering to share unforgettable stories about turning survival into living and memory into action for justice and the prevention of atrocities. I want to start by thanking our guest speakers, Charles and Angelique Rutiganira, Darcis and Chantel Semenega, for sharing their stories of survival, their message of hope for the world. I'd also like to thank the Dodd Center and the Riebling family for incredible work in raising the conversation. It gives me hope to know that there are more and more people around the world asking questions and having these conversations.
There are many human rights issues in our time in different countries and on different continents. The crime of genocide is the greatest injustice that human beings can commit against one another. To be discriminated against, to be hunted, to be forced to leave your home, to be tortured, to be killed simply because of your religion, your ethnicity, or something else you cannot help, or be, is the greatest crime. Since the Holocaust, we have had genocides over and over again. Cambodia, Bosnia, Darfur, Rwanda, genocides and other crimes against humanity do not happen overnight. There are warning signs that shouldn't be overlooked, and always many opportunities to speak out against these crimes and injustices. I believe we have a responsibility as advocates and human rights community to make sure that when the world says never again, it means it. Someone I admire once said, "Genocide is an ideology that my world is better without you in it." I like to use this quote to fuel conversations, perhaps leading to new areas of thoughts, such as the fact that there is no such thing as my world. How do we get to a place where thousands of people being killed deserve attention? And what will we do to stop today's violence from becoming tomorrow's tragedy? Please take this time to reflect on our guest speakers' stories. Let's ask ourselves what safe spaces need to be created so that people's lives can be protected and valued. Let's remind each other of the love and compassion at the core of our shared humanity. Most importantly, let's remember that there is no such thing as my world. Thank you. To learn more about Josiane's efforts to equip the next generation of Rwandans with the tools needed to succeed, we wanted to share with you the GoFundMe that she has created. So it's that organization I mentioned before the documentary. Quizera was named after a boy that she met when she went back 20 years later. So she created a GoFundMe to kind of help get the kids that she met there in that specific family back into school. Since it's, what's the price?
It's only $12 a year to fund education for the family and only $1 a year to fund their health care. So she's trying to really help families like Sarah's and other families too. So if you'd like to contribute in any way, I think she is about $50 away from her goal right now for this year. You can come and talk to us after the program and we'd be happy to share that link with you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sahil and Caitlin. Next, it's a great pleasure to introduce to the stage Professor Rwandan Genocide, who is an emeritus professor from Boston College in the fields of history and theology. His lecture tonight deals with Hitler, the churches, and the Holocaust, and resistance to call to action. Of course, as I mentioned, Professor Rybling and his wife are the generous sponsors of this event, but also sponsor a variety of other films and video productions in the field of human rights and ethics. So, Sahil, you might want to talk to him later, it sounds like. And Holocaust research, as well as the anniversary of the Berlin Wall and the Gulag in the Soviet Union. And I am absolutely delighted to count him as a great friend of myself personally and of the Dodd Center generally. So please join me in welcoming Dr.
Some time ago, I was sitting at a lunch table, and at that lunch table besides me was also former President Bill Clinton. And that doesn't happen every day, at least to me. But I thought, given the opportunity, let me ask him, what was the most significant moment and the most difficult moment in all your presidency? What he said is only one word. And that one word was Rwanda. It made me think, because the man that has to deal with so many issues during a presidency, why was it Rwanda that came to his mind immediately? And it also started my interest in not only focusing on the Holocaust, but also on comparing other genocides, although they are not comparable in the sense of a mathematical comparison or analytical comparison. There are still some general patterns that emerge since I started to do that. And I want to give you a few very simple examples. We're a little bit over time, so I will cut it short. Of course, the idea of comparing genocides makes some uneasy. So let me be clear that we are not comparing the suffering of human beings, because each one of those sufferings is unique and is an unspeakable atrocity and incomprehensible, particularly in hindsight. Rather, comparisons, if any, can tell us how and why society failed millions of victims. Identifying historical similarities in cases of genocide might lead to early detection, increased awareness, and potentially avoidance. Such an analysis can also be a tool to counter the arguments of Holocaust deniers. And one of the big arguments floating around until the Rwandan genocide by Holocaust deniers was, it is impossible to kill that many people in such a short period of time. And as we know, in Rwanda, close to 1 million people were killed in a few months. Without the machinery, the extermination machinery of concentration camps, of gas chambers, of machine guns, of thousands of concentration camps starving and exploiting people. So mass murder and even genocide can be carried out with any technological backing. The genocide of the Tutsi in Rwanda puts that argument of the impossibility of killing that many people in such a short time to rest forever. So in a way, the Rwandan genocide is absolute proof of the unimaginable capacity of and for evil if unleashed in an environment free of moral leadership. Hence, the first lesson to learn from comparing the Holocaust to genocides against the Tutsi is the sobering fact that genocides do not require machinery, complex organization, or even military participation to extinguish the lives of hundreds of thousands. A second major point of comparison between the Holocaust and the Rwandan genocide is that state authorities alone did not penetrate the genocide. Such horrendous events were only made possible by the general failure of individual citizens to live up to the most basic level of human ethical behavior. We detect a frightening similarity in the cooperation of large numbers of the general population. It is true that in Nazi Germany, most Germans did not personally participate in the slaughter of Jews. But the argument that they didn't know about it or didn't approve of it is certainly more than frivolous. How could one not notice the mass arrests and disappearance of hundreds of thousands of millions of people, men, women, and children, who helped to gather the lists of Jews, but their neighbors, colleagues, priests, and clergy? Who rounded up Jews and loaded them into cattle cars? Who scheduled the trains that crisscrossed the country laden with their human stock and time again returned empty from the east? Who were those respectable manufacturers who reaped large profits from poison gas and crematoria? In Rwanda, by contrast, a greater proportion of the civilian Hutu population was directly involved in genocidal acts. According to historian René Lemarchand, for the first time in history, I repeat, for the first time in history, a state, in this case Rwanda, succeeded in transforming the mass of its population into murderers. In 1993, Rwanda imported about 580,000 machetes, one for every third Hutu male. Ordinary citizens without machete in hand often manned the barriers, conducted house searches, looted and burned Tutsi property, and guarded captured Tutsi until the killing squads arrived. Killer and victim often knew each other. The Human Rights Watch report Leave None to Tell the Story quotes one witness, "Not everyone was armed with weapons, but everyone was armed with hate, ready to trip up a Tutsi who was passing, to slap in passing that miserable person who was running, out of breath, out of strength, who exhausted fell flat on the ground. Scarcely was he down when the blows fell with force. Children made a game of it all, following their older brothers in running after the Tutsi, throwing stones at them, and laughing at each Tutsi who was caught." And an especially horrifying and heartbreaking fact, hundreds of thousands of Tutsi women and girls were raped, infected with HIV/AIDS, and creating a generation of children from the sexual atrocities, sometimes by perpetrators who had murdered the rape victims' own husbands. So our second point of similarity is that deadly collaboration of the state requires also the deadly cooperation of ordinary citizens in perpetrating genocide. Our third point of comparison focuses on social institutions that function in between the state and the populace. Ideally, these societal pillars serve to educate, inform, unify, and inculcate moral norms in people for their betterment. Let us see how academia, the media, and the churches fared in the toxic atmosphere in Germany and Rwanda. Did they act to neutralize or counteract murderous forces? We already know the appalling answer to that question. But let us briefly focus and understand the active part played in those twin tragedies. Both in Germany and Rwanda, credentialed academics tried to establish an intellectual basis for the subjugation, exploitation, and ultimately extermination of segments of society. Certain physiognomic features were used as scientific proof to establish categories or hierarchies that isolated the other as a blight on and a menace to society. These efforts often went hand in hand with propaganda that labeled certain groups in the population as subhuman, vermin, or even cockroaches. Doesn't that bring our thinking back to the very Nazi experimental laboratory, so to speak? It was the shape of the nose that particularly was defined as a criterion to separate people that were supposed to be value to live and others to die. So it's horrible, but the Rwandan genocide was actually referred to in some academic literature as the nose genocide. Next, we will turn to another pillar of society, the media. The media has once been called a pillar of democracy that strengthens the bond of society. Upon taking power, the Nazis almost immediately moved to seize control of the media. Joseph Goebbels, who had a doctorate in German philosophy, has been called the greatest master of propaganda and marketing ever. In my research about similarities between the German and Rwandan propaganda, I found numerous parallels, but one struck me as particularly significant. Virtually all German households were equipped with an instrument called the Volksempfänger, loosely translated people's receiver. It was a simple version of a radio that played a major role in the agitation and indoctrination of the masses. They did not have to attend Nazi rallies. The radio brought Hitler's hate-filled speeches directly into their lives and living rooms and homes of millions of Germans, demonizing the Jews and other enemies of the states. Similarly, in Rwanda, cheap radios flooded the market just prior to the genocide. RTLM, Hutu Power Hate Radio, called on the people to eliminate, I quote, the cockroaches. It congratulated those who carried out their work and castigated those who hesitated to kill. The book Machete Season by Jean Hotzfeld describes the role of the radio in mass murder. One should pause, I quote, to consider the leading role of radio during the genocides in both Germany and Rwanda. radio exerted a decisive influence. Radio is far and wide the most dangerous media. It wields a unique, terrifying power once the state or its institution apparatus collapses. It casts off everything that might attenuate or sidetrack the force of words. In a chaotic situation, radio can prove to be the most efficient tool of democracy, as well as revolution and fascism, because it penetrates unhindered to the individual's deepest core, anywhere and at any moment. End of quote. This brings us to the third pillar of society, the one that should have held the key to moral resistance to genocide, the churches. Here's the reasoning. A genocide, any genocide, is in its final analysis not an academic, a political, or military issue. The real issue at stake is strictly moral. Genocide is universally viewed as the gravest immoral crime against humanity. So which of the institutions of civilized society claims to be the arbiter and defender of morals? The church is custodian of religious faiths and morality. What then was the church, this immensely powerful institution in Germany and Rwanda during the Holocaust of the Jews and the genocide of the Tutsi? We could spend hours illuminating the position and actions of the churches during these tragedies. The Holocaust had deep roots in Christianity's long tradition of religious anti-Semitism. In fact, my own father, Catholic father, was one of the soldiers that had a God with us belt buckle and when forced to kill not unbelievers, but Christians. In Rwanda, church members killed their fellow parishioners, and even in a number of cases, their own pastor or priest, either because they were Tutsi or they tried to help Tutsi. But we are speaking here not of individuals, but of the churches as social institutions, which tremendous influence in Rwandan society, not to speak of German society, during the Nazi regime. During the colonial days, authorities called the task of education to the churches, giving them a direct hand in shaping ethical values, ethnic identities, and, crucially, political views. Since the early 20th century, Rwanda has been thoroughly missionized by Catholic and, to some extent, Protestant churches. Rwanda became one of the most Christian nations in Africa. By the 1990s, over 90% of the population professed membership in a Christian denomination. However, Rwanda's tragic history has shown that rather than helping their members to reflect Christian values of love and peace, the churches with their political ties and deep influence in Rwandan society came to reflect all the enmities and divisions of that society. Concluding, 25 years ago, that racist rage exploded in a mad frenzy that left over 70% of Rwanda's Tutsi dead and resulted in hundreds of thousands of anguished Tutsi survivors. The theme of our meeting tonight includes the words, a chronicle of hope. In the wake of such utterly devastating loss, such massive failures of fundamental human values, how can we dare to speak of hope? Precisely because we have survivors, and actually we have survivors among us, and we will now, in the next section of this program, be able to directly hear from them. As you will hear, they are alive today because the surrender of human values in Rwanda was not complete. Survivors had a rare opportunity, so many others did not, to have around them people who saw them as worthy of life and who risked themselves to protect, risked their own lives to protect their fellow humans in desperate need. The presence of these survivors and their authentic stories indeed gives us powerful reason for hope. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lorenz. And you remind me that I should also note that we're gathered today in an auditorium named for Simon Conover, who himself was a survivor from the Holocaust, who resettled here to Connecticut, became a great friend of the university, a great friend of the Dodd Center, and is really at the core of part of our mission as well. So it's totally fitting. So we're adjusting the lights. It's not an effect of your eyes. So next, it is a great pleasure to welcome to the stage Tharsis Semeninga, who was born in Kabrizi, Rwanda, and after studying for the priesthood with the Salesian Fathers at Risero Minor University in Rwanda, then at the Katanga Major University in the Congo, became a senior lecturer in biotechnology at the National University of Rwanda in 1994. He and his family moved to Canada in 2003, and he currently resides in the beautiful city of Ottawa. So please join me in welcoming Tharsis Semeninga.
Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to begin by introducing myself. I'm a survivor of the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. It is deceivingly simple to say that nearly 1 million people died in 100 days in a distant African country during some kind of tribal war. The reality is much more complicated. Why? Because for centuries, Rwanda was home to 3 groups of people: Hutu, Tutsi, and the tiny minority Twa. They shared common culture, language, and religious traditions. Of course, there were occasional tensions between groups, but there was basically no incident of group violence between Hutu and Tutsis for 700 years. In 1994, however, ordinary people picked up crude weapons, clubs, spears, and machetes, and slaughtered their neighbors, workmates, fellow church members, even their spouses. In a country that was over 90% Christian, most people who died in the genocide perished in churches, sometimes lured there by their own priests and pastors, who then called in murderers to do their work. Some people participated willingly, others were threatened with death if they did not join the killing. Very few dared to help the Tutsis escape or hide. And so about 75% of Tutsi population was decimated, or perished. You may ask, how did this division between Hutu and Tutsi form? And how did it reach the point of genocide? Rwanda is considered one of the most Christian nations in Africa, but it was not always that way. Christianity came to the country in the early 20th century with European colonizers, namely Germans and Belgians. Catholic missionaries arrived in the early 1900s, and Belgium chose a strategy of divide and rule. At the top of Rwandan society was a Tutsi monarchy. Both colonial authorities and Catholic missionaries tried to cultivate ties with the ruling Tutsi class. There were 2 basic reasons for this strategy. First, both religious and political authorities sought to control the people using a ruling structure that was already in place, the Tutsi monarchy, actually. Second, the Europeans believed that the Tutsi elite fit profile of a racial myth. So European explorers, like many social Darwinists, believed firmly in the superiority of the white man, But in Rwanda, they found an organized, stable society ruled by Africans. How could that be? According to the racist notions of white superiority, the colonial authorities and European missionaries adopted what was called the Hamitic theory, which said that the son of a biblical figure of Noah, whose name was Ham, had fathered a race that was European in origin, even though had dark skin. So they believed the Tutsi were not native Africans, but they had come to Rwanda via Egypt or Ethiopia and had conquered the darker Bantu Hutus. The Tutsi were tall, fair-skinned, with thin noses, and they supposedly inherited intelligence, courage, and natural leadership abilities. The reality, though, was that the two Rwandan people, Hutu and Tutsi, were not tribal or racial categories. They were labels that identified a person's social or economic status. Most Hutu were farmers. The cattle herders and landowners were mostly Tutsis. But Hutu could become Tutsi if they came to own enough cattle. Also, intermarriage between Hutu and Tutsis further blurred the lines between them. But such changeable categories would not work for the colonial authorities, who wanted to rule the country by using this mythical class of genetically superior Tutsi. So they instituted an identity card system marking each Rwandan as Hutu, Tutsi, or Twa. So they determined an individual's identity by using crude measures, such as the person's height, the shape of the nose, or the number of cattle or amount of land owned. These labels then became racial categories, erecting hard barriers between Hutu and Tutsi. So the colonial powers took a myth of racial superiority and made it come true by educating and empowering Tutsi. They dismissed the Hutu chiefs and installed the Tutsi in their place, and of course, the Tutsi were only too happy to accept. The hierarchy of the Rwandan Catholic Church also reflected belief in the Hamitic myth. Only Tutsi could become priests and nuns, while the Tutsi royalty was suspicious of Catholic missionizing. More peasant Hutu converted in hopes of improving their lot in life. But church authorities instructed the missionaries to concentrate on converting Tutsi because they felt that if the ruler converted, the rest of the population would follow. Protestant missionaries unfortunately followed a similar strategy. So in the decade before my birth, Belgian authorities enthroned a Catholic educated Tutsi king. After that, tens of thousands of Tutsi converted, including my grandparents and parents. I was born in 1991. As a child, I would accompany my grandpa, along with other churchgoers, to the mission of Zaza to attend Mass. And as I grew to early adolescence, I was acquainted with a community of men and women of the cloth called White Fathers and White Sisters from European countries, mainly Belgium, France, Italy, and Germany. I was attracted by the dedication of many among them to noble causes such as building and running hospitals, schools, and organizing literacy courses and caring for the poor. So, when I was 14 years old, I left my village to prepare to study for the priesthood. In my secondary school studies, I became more conscious of social inequities among the three ethnic groups that made Rwanda's traditional society. In the seminary, I studied Latin, Greek, and other subjects. I also was exposed to the principles of equality and justice, and this was in the late 1950s, the turbulent transition between from colonial rule to independence. So at that period, the tensions were growing and growing. Wood activists began blaming all Tutsis for social inequality. But even in this period, all groups worshipped together as they had in the past. The year 1959 brought the mysterious death of the Tutsi king and the beginning of what was called the Hutu Social Revolution, a period of anti-Tutsi violence sparked by Catholic-educated intellectuals and the highly political actions of the Catholic mission, to which I belong as a member and a future priest. Tutsi chiefs were driven out now, and Hutu took their place. During that violent period, the Rwandan Catholic Church took an ambiguous role. Some churches sheltered Tutsi refugees, but many European priests sympathized with the Hutu cause and stirred hostility against Tutsi. A leading white father openly supported, spearheaded, and masterminded the political revolution. Well, in the seminary, we students began to question why men of God would support tribal hate and take sides with some believers against others. My father was a devout Catholic and a supporter of the Tutsi monarchy. For that reason, a Dutch white father and extremist politicians plotted to destroy my father's political influence and had him thrown into prison. So the political meddling and systemic racial discrimination within the church made me question my future vocation as a priest. Like many of my black schoolmates, I was denied opportunity given to white students. Many of us quit the seminary and took up studies at secular universities. That's how I ended up teaching biotechnology at the National University of Rwanda in Butare, about 80 miles south of the capital, Kigali. But in the meantime, I married my wife Chantal, who had many similar experiences. I also adopted the faith of Jehovah's Witnesses, a small Christian group that tried to imitate the early Christians by not taking part in politics, military service, or any kind of violence. In Africa and elsewhere, the witnesses have faced bans and outright persecution because of this position. Witnesses who refuse to take part in patriotic movements, wars of independence, civil wars, and ethnic strife were often viewed by all factions as the enemy. So to conclude, while my new faith meant I faced even more discrimination and danger, the spiritual path I chose is one reason why I and my family are alive today, as you will learn from our survival story. Thank you.
Thank you, Tharsis. That was important contextual understanding to share with everyone as we now move toward the testimonies of survival. I'll also say that we're privileged to be joined by Fidel Kazadi, who is going to translate for us so that our guests can speak in their native Kinyarwanda as well. So you'll be able to hear them tell their stories in their own language. And then we're deeply grateful to Fidel for translation as well. We're going to start with Charles Rutaganira. Charles, can you start us by telling us where you lived in Rwanda in 1994, as well as the social conditions there prior to the beginning of the genocide?
Yes, I lived nabaga i Kigali mu Rwanda.
Check the volume on the
Nibyo nabaga i Kigali mu murwa mukuru mu Rwanda, kandi rwose imiterere yari icyo gihe abahutu n'abatutsi bari babanye neza, bakorera hamwe kandi bajya mu itorero basengera hamwe.
Yes, I lived in Kigali, the capital city of Rwanda. At that time, Hutus and Tutsi, they were living together very well, working together, going to same churches even.
And then what happened in 1994?
Mbere yuko jenoside itangira hari ukuntu bigaragara rwose bizwi.
So before the genocide started, there was violence, and it was known.
Ariko ndibuka abasore bane baje iwanjye barakomanga binjira mu nzu, baravuga ati turashaka amafaranga ariko turashaka kugenzura yuko mufite imbunda muri inzu yanyu. Narababwiye.
I remember one incident, there was 4 young men that came home, knocking at the door and came in saying, asking for money and asking to check the house, whether there was any weapons.
Narababwiye nti turi abahamya ba Yehova, nta mbunda tugira kandi ntabwo rwose twivanga muri politiki.
So I told them, no, we are Jehovah's Witnesses, we are not taking parts in politics, and we don't have any weapons.
Ubwo bahise bagenda, ariko igihe indege ya perezida w'igihugu bayirasaga ikagwa.
So at that time they left, but what happened after the president's airplane was shut down?
Habaye urusaku rukomeye mu mujyi, hanyuma batanga itangazo bagira bati nta muntu ugomba kuva aho ari ajya ahandi hantu abantu bagume mu ngo zabo.
There was an announcement.
I think you switched off the microphone back there.
It's going to take 1 minute. They're having some technical difficulties.
Okay. Apologies to everyone. Apologies. They're sorting out the microphone situation. They made it better before they're going to, or made it worse before they're going to make it better.
All right. Let's try the handhelds instead. So we will share these, okay? So if you wouldn't mind sharing, and then we'll share.
Ubwo iyi ndege ya perezida imaze guhanuka bateye itangazo rivuga nta muntu ugomba kuva aho ari, abantu bagomba kuvuga kuguma mu ngo zabo, nta muntu uva aho ari.
So at that time, after the airplane was shut down, the announcement was made, nobody, the curfew, nobody was to leave their homes.
Ubwo batangiye kwica abayobozi b'abanyepolitike bakuru b'abahutu, kandi barangiye batangira kwica abatutsi.
So at At that time, they started killing some who were in the authority that were Hutus opposing, and then they went ahead and started killing Tutsis as well.
Mu gitondo ari kuwa mbere ku cyumweru ndibuka ko numvishe amasasu menshi mu rugo nyuma y'iwanjye avuga cyane nuko itangaruka mu nzu.
So I remember one Thursday, I heard outside there was a lot gunshots, and so I went running back inside the house.
Nabwiye inshuti yanjye twabanaga mu nzu ntireka dusenge numvaga ari isengesho rya nyuma.
So I told my friend who lived with me in the house, let's say a prayer. I really felt that that was the last prayer.
Kubera yuko bicaga abantu buri munsi aho niho bari bageze aho dutuye, ubwo rero dusenga nsaba iki gikurikira.
So they were killing people every day, and they were getting closer and closer. And that day, I knew it was gonna be our turn. So I prayed, saying this:
Yehova, rwose turagukunda kandi uzatuzure.
Jehovah, we love you, and please resurrect us.
Igihe nari ndangije umuntu yakomanze ku rugi aravuga ati musohoke kandi amaboko ari hejuru.
So right after when I finished, someone knocked at the door and said, get out, all of you get outside, and with your hands in the air.
Ubwo yahise ambaza ati nari mfite Bibiliya mu kuboko kw'iburyo, arambaza ati ubwoko bwawe ni ubuhe?
So I had my Bible, I held my Bible in my right hand, and he asked me, of what tribe are you?
Naramushubije nti ndi umuhamya wa Yehova.
And I said, I'm a Jehovah's Witness.
Aravuga ati ntabwo mubaza idini ni ubwoko bwawe.
He said, no, I'm not asking you for what religion are you, what tribe are you?
Ndamubwira nti data akomoka mu bwoko bw'Abatutsi.
And I said, my father is from the Tutsi tribe.
Nuko amfata akaboko k'ibumoso abwira igitero cyari inyuma ye bari bafite inkoto za gakondo ati mumurangirize.
So he grabbed my left arm and gave me to the mob that was behind him and told them, finish him off.
Sounds terrifying. Did you recognize anyone in the mob, this group, and then what did they do to you?
Yego rwose bari abaturanyi banjye buri gitondo twarasuhuzanyaga ariko uwo munsi bari bahindutse rwose.
Yes, they were my neighbors. We would say hi to each other passing, but that day they were changed.
Amaso yabo mbese bari bameze nk'inyamaswa ziteguye kujya kurya inyama.
Their eyes, they were really like vicious animals ready to jump on a prey.
Ubwo ngubwo bahise bamfata ntabwo namenya mu by'ukuri ibyo bakoze gusa bantaye mu nzira bamaze kuntema ku mubiri inkota ziragaragara.
So I don't really recall what happened after that. They just threw me outside, started hitting me, and I still have those wounds.
And then nyuma yaho rero ubwo ngubwo imvura yakomeje nagumye aho ngaho nyuma y'isaha imwe kugeza ku isaha ebyiri haje kugaruka bamwe muri abo ngabo.
So I was just laying down there for dead, and then 1 hour, 2 hours later, a group, some of them came back.
Igihe bazaga umwe yaravuze ati ariko kuki bishuye umuhamya wa Yehova?
So one of them was like, why did they kill this Jehovah's Witness?
Nta muntu washubije ariko bakoze umuko bakuramo wallet yanjye barayijyana.
But nobody answered that question, but they did reach in my pocket and grab my wallet and took it.
Muri uwo mwanya imvura yatangiye kugwa kandi imvura nyinshi cyane rwose.
So at that time it started raining very heavy.
Nuko bajya kugwa mu nzu yanjye ariko aho bandeba.
So they just went for shelter right by my house, but keeping an eye on me.
So they had left you to die and were waiting for it to stop raining, but watching. And how did you manage to escape, giving them that they were right there watching over you?
Samueli ni umuhutu ariko wari umuhamya wa Yehova yohereje umuhungu we araza aranterura anjyana iwabo mu nzu.
Samuel was a witness, a Hutu witness. He sent his son to come and got me, carried me into their house.
Igihe nari ndi mu rugo yabwiye abandi bahamya babiri nabo baraza bampa imiti yo kumfuka by'ibanze muri icyo gihe.
So when I was at his house, he asked 2 more witnesses to come over and help treating me and covering my wounds as well.
That must have been incredibly dangerous for them. What kind of risk were they running? What happened to Hutu who were helping Tutsi?
Ibyo byari akaga gakomeye kugerageza gufasha umuntu wagombaga kwicwa.
He was putting yourself in such a danger to try to help someone who was meant to be killed.
Iyo umuhutu yashaka guhisha cyangwa se kurengera umututsi babicaga bombi.
When a Hutu would try to advocate or try to hide a Tutsi, they were both killed at that time.
Uwo munsi nimugoroba rero,
so that day, that evening,
umuyobozi wayoboye cya gitero cy'abicaga abantu yaje kwa Samweli.
One of the captain that was leading that mob that were killing people, they came to that house, to Samuel's house.
Nuko abwira Samweli ati Charles ari hehe, baramubwira bati Charles ari hano.
So he told Samuel, where's Charles? And he said, Charles is here.
Aramubwira ati ntacyo Charles tuzakemura ikibazo ejo mu gitondo ntacyo bitwaye.
And he said, all right, no problems. We'll take care of Charles by tomorrow.
So what happened next?
Icyakurikiye mu gitondo kare hagati ya 10 na 11 mu gitondo bujya gucya aho hantu habereye intambara.
So what happened, a fight broke off that morning, that early morning, around 4-5 a.m.
Intambara yari hagati y'ingabo za leta na FPR, ingabo zarwanyaga leta icyo gihe.
So at that time, that fight that started, it was between the government, the soldiers of the government, and also the opposing the rebels.
Kandi rwose abo bantu buri wese ashaka gufata ahantu kubera ibigega bya lisansi byari bihari.
So it was the RPF and also the soldiers. They were all trying to get hold and control of that area because they had gasoline.
Kubera rero iyo ntambara umugambi rero bafite wo kugira ngo baze batwice ntago wabaye kuko bose abicanyi barahunze ndetse n'abicwaga barahunga icyarimwe.
So at that time, with that fight that started, everybody fled. Those who were killing and those who were supposed to be killing, they all left.
Ariko Samuel ntabwo yagiye, yagumanye nanjye.
But Samuel did not leave. He stayed with me.
Yaravuze ati Charles ntabwo ngusiga aho uzagwa niho nzagwa.
He said, Charles, I'm not leaving you. Where you going to die, I'm going to die there.
That's remarkable. And so, how did the two of you survive together?
Ubwo rero nyuma y'icyumweru nibwo haje abasirikare bo muri RPF bafungura imiryango.
7 days later, the soldiers of the RPF, they came opening doors.
Hanyuma baza gusanga Samuel ari aho ngaho bamubaza impamvu atahunze.
So they found Samuel and asked him why he didn't flee.
Arababwira ati mfite umuntu w'inkomere.
And he said, I have a wounded person here.
Araza barandeba baramubwira bati uri umuntu mwiza.
So they came and saw me and they told him, you are a nice person.
And you survived. So the last question then, you survived physically, but recovering emotionally must have been incredibly difficult. How is it that if you have been able to recover emotionally and to move on from this dark moment?
nyuma ya jenoside
After the genocide,
natangiye umurimo wo kongera kwigisha ubutumwa bwa Bibiliya.
I restarted my Bible teaching work,
Rwose abantu narabababariye.
and I really forgave people.
Nubwo mu by'ukuri abantu nabwirizaga bari bafite ipfunwe ry'ibyo bakoze bitari byiza,
Although the people that I was preaching to had that guilt of things that they have done,
benshi bize Bibiliya ndetse no muri gereza, kandi ubu barahindutse, mbona ko ari abavandimwe banjye.
and many started studying the Bible, changed their lives, even those who were imprisoned. And now I view them as my brothers.
Faith and community, it sounds like, both how you survived and how you recovered in many ways. Thank you, Charles, for sharing that.
Thank you.
And really, we'd like now to turn to your story. This was a time before you and Charles were married, correct? Yes. And so tell us about where you lived, not in Kigali, and what conditions there were like prior to the beginning of the genocide in 1994.
njyewe nari nabaga hamwe n'ababyeyi banjye mu mujyi muto bita Bugesera.
I lived in a small town with my parents, a small town of Bugesera.
I Bugesera yari tawuni ituwemo n'abatutsi benshi.
And Bugesera was mostly Tutsi living there.
Abahutu bari bake cyane.
And very few were Hutus.
Natangiye kwiga Bibiliya n'abahamya ba Yehova mbatizwa mu 1986.
So I started studying with Jehovah's Witnesses, and I got baptized in 1986.
Icyo gihe abahamya ba Yehova barabatotezaga cyane kuko ubutegetsi ntabwo babemeraga kuko bativanga muri politiki.
But at that time, Jehovah's Witnesses were persecuted very much because they weren't taking parts in politics.
Mu 1994 hari itorero rinini ry'abahamya bagera ku 100, abenshi muri bo barabatutsi.
So in my congregation around 1994, most of them were Tutsis. We were around 100 members.
Twari dufite family ebyiri gusa z'abahutu.
Only 2 families were Hutus.
And so what happened when the genocide came to your village?
Ubwo genocide itangiye byari bikomeye kuko tutari dufite ahantu ho kwihisha.
It was very difficult when the genocide started because we didn't have anywhere to go hide.
Kubera kuko abavandimwe bose cyangwa se abantu bashobora kuduhisha bose bari abatutsi.
Because those who would have hidden us were themselves Tutsis.
Ntabwo twashobora kubona ahantu ho kuba.
It was hard to find a place to live.
Twashoboye kumva ko mu yindi province duturanye ya Gitarama.
So we just felt like in another place at Gitarama,
ko dushobora guhungirayo. Meya wabo yari yavuze ko atazica abatutsi.
In that area, their mayor had said that no killings of the Tutsi would happen there, so we felt like going there.
Tugezeyo twamazeyo igihe gito, noneho abasirikare baza kwica meya.
So we spent there a few days, and then the soldiers killed that mayor.
Meya bamaze kumwica umunsi ukurikiyeho bahise batera ahantu twari turi mu mashuri twari twarahungiye twihishe.
So we were all hiding at some school. After the mayor was killed, they started coming toward us, toward the schools.
Bishe abantu umunsi wose bageza nijoro. Bananiwe baravuga ngo reka bagende basagaruka ejo.
That day they had killed people all day long, and then there were so tired, they were like, okay, we'll resume the killing tomorrow.
byari ibintu biteye ubwoba.
It was very scary.
Abahamya twari turi kumwe mu cyumba twaravuze tuti reka tubaze Yehova icyo tugomba gukora.
Some of the witnesses that were hiding with us in one of the rooms, we said, let's just pray and ask Jehovah what to do.
Nyuma yo gusenga abavandimwe twari turi kumwe baravuze bati nimureke tubaha wenda Yehova aradushakira abavandimwe bashobora kuduhisha.
So after praying, the brothers that were with us, they said, let's leave this place. Hopefully we'll find our brothers that will hide us.
Naje kuvugisha mama wanjye yarari aho ndavuga nti tugende, arambwira ati sinshobora kugenda kuko abana banjye bamaze gupfa.
I told my mom, I was with her there, and I told her, Mom, let's go. And she said, no, I can't go. I've lost all my children.
Ariko ikibabaje ku munsi wakurikiyeho baragarutse baramwica.
But unfortunately, the following day, they came back and killed her.
Gukora kugenda byari ibintu bigoye cyane kuko ahantu hose twanyuraga hari huzuye imirambo y'abantu, hari bariyeri ku buryo kugenda byari bigoye cyane.
Traveling, leaving that place was very difficult as we were walking and seeing dead bodies everywhere, and also there were roadblocks. So traveling and going through those was very difficult.
Bariyeri twagezeho baraduhagaritse ariko bagezeho baratureka baravuga bati mugende ntabwo murenga imbere.
So in one of the roadblock, they stopped us and they just let us free and said, you just leave, that's fine. You're not gonna make it further.
Iyindi yakurikiyeho bahise baduhagarika baratubwira bati mwicara aho hasi.
So at the next roadblock, they stopped us and told us to sit down.
Baratubwira bati muvuge ijambo rya nyuma kuko ubu tugiye kubica.
And they said, say your last words because we're about to kill you.
Twarababwiye tuti mureke dusenge, twebwe ariko turabahamya ba Yehova ntabwo rwose twivanga muri politiki.
So we just asked them to at least pray. And we told them we're Jehovah's Witnesses and we're not taking any parts in the politics.
Muri ako kanya hahise haza umwana umwe w'umuhamya wa Yehova abyumvishije yahise yirukanka ajya kubwira papa we w'umuhamya wa Yehova.
So at that time there was this young boy who was a Jehovah's Witness. He heard that and then ran and told his dad, who was a witness as well.
Papa we n'umukobwa we bahise baza biruka babwira abo bicanyi bati mutubabarire ntimubice.
So the dad came and his daughter and they talked to the killers and saying, forgive them please and don't kill them.
Kubera kuko barabahutu kandi babazi babahaye amafaranga barabwira bati nimutubabarire mwo kubica barabemerera.
So himself was a Hutu and they knew him, so they accepted and let us free after he's given them money.
Ariko ikibabaje nuko badukurikiye bakicamo bamwe muri twebwe.
But the sad thing, after we left, they followed us and killed some of us.
Ubwo abavandimwe bahise babwira bamwe muri twe babahisha mu nzu y'ubwami yari aho bugufi, abandi babahisha mu mazu yabo.
So the brothers after that, what they did, they hid some of us at a kingdom hall that was nearby, and others they hid them at the houses of Hutu.
Baradufashije cyane ku buryo byakoze ku mitima yacu.
So they were very, very helpful and protective, and that had touched our hearts very much.
Ariko abicanyi baje kumenya ko hari bamwe bahishe mu nzu y'ubwami babasangayo barabica. Icyo gihe bishemo abasaza banjye babiri na mubyara wanje.
unfortunately, the killers heard that there was some hiding in the Kingdom Hall, so they went in and killed them. They killed 2 of my brothers and my cousin.
ubwo ariko intambara irangiye naje gusubira mu rugo aho mvuka.
But after the war, I went back where my birthplace.
Ngiye gusanga nisanze abavandimwe banjye bose bahamya ba Yehova barabishe gusa hasigaye abantu 10 gusa.
So from that big congregation, only 10 had remained.
Byari ibintu bibabaje cyane birenze kwihangana k'umuntu. Ntabwo nari nzi ko nshobora kuzongera kwishima mu buzima bwanjye.
It was very, very difficult and overwhelming, nothing that you can think a human can go through. And I didn't think I would be able to go on with my life and find happiness.
Thank you, Angelique, for sharing that story. Would you share how you and Charles met as well? It's after that and give us a sense of where you were able to find happiness again.
Okay. Yeah. Ubwo nyuma y'intambara mbere y'intambara nari nziranye na Charles ariko nk'umuntu dukomoka ahantu hamwe.
So we were just from the same, we grew up kind of the same area, so we knew each other even prior to the war.
Intambara irangiye ubwo twabaye inshuti kuko twari tuziranyeho ibintu byinshi cyangwa dusangiye ibintu byinshi.
So we had so much in common prior to the war, and we even after that. So.
Twishimiye rero kubana nubwo twese twari abantu b'imfubyi nta n'umwe ufite ababyeyi.
So we were both orphans, and we wanted to be together.
Ubwo nyuma y'imyaka 2 mu 1996 twahise dukoresha ubukwe turabana. Ibyishimo rero byaje kuba byinshi kuko ubu dufitanye n'abana 3 kandi bose basenga Yehova.
So 2 years after the genocide, we were able to get married, and that was a source of happiness, and having 3 children as well, and they all worship Jehovah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Chantal, we'd like to turn to your experience, and I know Tharsis shared the history of Rwanda, and we know that the conflict did not just emerge in 1994, but there had been conflict between groups prior to that. Can you share the kind of discrimination you and your family faced in the early years?
Nkiri umwana muto mfite imyaka 10 nari mfite inshuti yo mu Bahutu n'Abatutsi nta kibazo cyari kiri hagati yacu.
When I was 10 years old, I had friends who were Hutus, Tutsis, and we were fine, no problem, without any issues between us.
Ariko noneho muri 1959 ibintu byarahindutse.
But things started changing in 1959.
Abahutu batangiye gutoteza Abatutsi mu ngeri zose baba abakire cyangwa abakene.
So Hutus started persecuting Tutsis, whether they were rich or poor.
Bari bafashijwemo n'abapadiri kuko bera kuko babahaye imipanga n'ibibiriti bakajya gutwika inzu z'Abatutsi bakabica ndetse n'abandi bakabasenyera amazu.
So they were supported by white priests that would give them matches, and so they can go and burn down the houses of the Tutsis and also even kill them.
Umuryango wanjye warahunze turatatana basaza banjye bose bahungira mu mahanga.
So at that time, my whole family we fled and kind of scattered around, and we all fled the country.
So it's clear that the role of the church is quite significant in Rwandan history, but also your personal history as well. Can you tell us a little bit about your own religious background?
nahoze ndi umubikira mu muryango witwa Petite Sœur de Jésus, baza kunyohereza muri Cameroon gufasha abantu baho babaga mu ishyamba bitwa impunyu, kwigisha gusoma, kwandika no kubavura.
I was a nun of the Little Sisters of Jesus. That's what we were called, and eventually I was sent to Cameroon to do charity work, helping the nomadic people and helping them, teaching them how to read and write, and also providing treatment.
Nyuma yaho naje kuvamo maze n'imyaka 6 yo gufasha ababyeyi banjye bari bashaje.
But my parents were getting older, so I left and went back home to care for my parents.
Ubwo nibwo nahuye na Tarsisi turubaka tubyarana n'abana 5.
So it is at that time, around that time, that I met Tarsis, and we were married and had 5 children.
Mu gihe cyashize gito Tarsisi amenyana n'abahamya yiga Bibiliya aza kuba umwe muri bo.
So later on, Tarsis met Jehovah's Witnesses, starting studying the Bible with them, and eventually became one of them.
Ariko naje kugira impungenge
But I was very anxious
kubera ko abahamya baratotezwaga bakabafata bakabafunga, cyane cyane abahamya b'abahutu kuko babaga badashyigikiye ubutegetsi bwariho bw'abahutu bene wabo.
So, because at that time, Jehovah's Witnesses, they were being persecuted because they weren't taking parts in politics, and even they were being thrown into prison, and even those who were Hutus and not taking part in the government, they were being persecuted as well. And I was just worried he might be caught and thrown into prison and may even die there.
Well, it sounds like even before you were concerned about the persecution and the threat that the government posed, but before April of 1994, did you have any sense that something like the genocide might be approaching?
Yeah, muri icyo gihe twebwe mu muryango wacu ntabwo twigeze tubwira abana bacu ibyerekeye kuba by'ivangura ry'amoko.
In our family, we had never told our children about any divisions, about any ethnicity divisions.
Kandi muri icyo gihe byari bimeze nabi kuko abatutsi bo hanze b'abasirikare bashatse gutaha mu gihugu baza bashaka barwanya abahutu bari mu gihugu.
So it was hard at that time because some Tutsi that had fled the country years earlier had came back and wanting to take control.
Abatutsi bo mu gihugu babarebye nabi ndetse abana bacu bagize ibibazo cyane mu mashuri.
So Tutsis in the country, they started to look at them on a bad light, and our children had problems even at school.
Abarimu barabwiraga ngo bahaguruke buri wese avuga ubwoko bwe niba ari umuhutu cyangwa niba ari umututsi.
So the teachers would raise them up, all the kids, and ask them to say of which ethnicity they all are, whether they're Hutu or Tutsi.
Umwarimu yarabakubitaga kubera ko bavuga ngo ntabwo bazi ubwoko bwabo ntibavugisha ukuri barabisha.
So my children would be beaten up at school because the teachers would say that they were lying, saying that they don't know of what ethnicity they were.
Bari barashyizeho na radiyo yitwa Rutwitsi.
So there was even a radio station called Rutwitsi that they had put on.
Yakanguriraga abahutu kwanga abatutsi bakabita amazina inyenzi inzoka ko zikwiye kuvaho bakazica.
So that radio had racial hate speech, and they were calling Tutsis cockroaches and snakes, and that they have to be killed.
ariko bari bazi ko Tarsisi yakoraga akazi ke ko kwigisha, ntabwo yavanguraga amoko, niyo mpamvu hari nk'abarimu b'abahutu ndetse n'abatutsi bazaga iwacu tukabana kugira ngo bumve ko bafite amahoro iwacu, kuko ibyo ntabwo bari bituzeho byo kuvanga.
But they knew about Tarsis as a professor. They knew he wasn't taking any parts in any discrimination. And even some of his co-workers, professors, would come home and families would stay at home feeling safe.
So even though the tensions were clearly rising, you felt safe. But that brings us then to April of 1994. What happened then?
Aho ngaho byari bikomeye cyane, kuko ubwicanyi bwatangiye i Kigali, buzi Butare, nyuma bikwira igihugu cyose.
It was very difficult at that time. The killing started in Kigali mostly, and then eventually reached Butare, and then the whole country.
Mu gitondo kimwe umwarimu yaraje wigishaga na Tarsisi, ati ngwino nkujyane mu mujyi tujye kureba umutegetsi.
So one morning, one professor who worked with Tarsis came and took him, saying, let's go in town to go see one government official.
Yamujyanye mu gitondo saa 3, amugarura saa 12 za nimugoroba.
So he took him that morning around 9. He didn't bring him back home till around 6.
Twari tuzi ko yapfuye.
We thought he was killed.
Nyuma yaje afite ubwoba, ahinda umushyitsi yabonye amaraso yamenetse mu muhanda, ati twitegure gupfa, uyu munsi ntabwo turara.
By the time he got home, he was so scared, and just because of the bloodshed he had witnessed, and he just told us, well, let's just all be ready because we're probably not gonna make it.
Ariko yaratubwiye ati nimuze tujye gusenga mupfukame.
But he told us, let's all get together and pray, go on our knees.
Twaragiye kuko arasenga, arangije aravuga ati Imana ndagusaba ko haza avuga izina ry'umuntu umwe w'inshuti ye witwaga Adolphe, ati aze muri aka kanya yari umuhutu, ati ashobora kudufasha tukabaho.
So he prayed at that time, begging for Jehovah to send his friend who was Hutu, his name is Adolphe, to come and maybe help us and save us.
Igitangaje nuko Adolphe nta n'iminota 5 yashize yaraje.
What was amazing is that just only like 5 minutes later, Adolphe showed up.
Byari nko miracle twabonye.
He was like a miracle.
Amazing. So, I know you were together, so maybe I can ask Tarsis, can you at this point pick up the story and tell what happened next?
So Adolphe came and took 2 of our children. Then another friend of ours called Justin took the rest of us. But we learned that about 30 minutes later, so the professor who had forced me to go downtown came back to my house with soldiers to kill us. So if we had been there, we would have been killed. Actually, with the help of the Hutu academics, so the Tutsi faculty of my university was decimated in a genocide. So why killing Tutsi was so easy at that time? So killing Tutsi was easy because the killers had lists of people who had to die. So they would hunt them down, so using those lists, but also they would use identity cards, as we mentioned earlier. So if someone would come to the red blocks or to the checkpoints, so they would ask them their ID cards, and if the card was mentioned Tutsi, so he would be killed. Now, if someone had no ID card, so now they would look at some signs, as we mentioned. They look at his height, the shape of his nose, the shape of his neck, or the shape of his skin. So, for example, when I was going to Justin's house and we came to a checkpoint, so they recognized me and they took me and put the machete to my throat. So Justin pleaded them and said, please don't kill him. So because they knew Justin, and because Justin gave him some money, they let us go. So we made it to Justin's home that evening, but the following morning, everybody knew that we were hiding at Justin's place. So now what to do? So amazingly, some time later, earlier, Justin had started the Bible with a Hutu militia who didn't come with Jehovah's Witnesses. But that Hutu militia came and warned us that his militia friends were planning to come and wipe our family out. So he helped us to hide in a thicket behind Justin's house. It was raining, and we hid for 12 hours, and we were soaked to the skin. Now, during the night, a mob came and searched Justin's house around 9 p.m. So they searched every corner to find us, but they didn't find us. But now how to go out of this thicket? So still, the same Vincent took us to his home, but now instead of hiding us in his big home, he hid us in a mud goat shack. So the mud shack was close to a market, and we could heard people, the killers going by and telling their stories of the killings. So we stayed in that mud house, which was very, very, very small, for 1 month. So living there was like living with fleas and lice. So, but now, after 1 month staying in that mud goat shack, so our friends found that it was too dangerous to stay because people were coming from Kigali and fleeing and coming to our area, and they could find us. So they planned to move us from that place to another place about 4 miles away. And we went there during the night, wrapped in black blankets, and we could make it to that place, which was actually a very small place, about 2 meters square, and we lived there for another month and a half. Now, I should mention here that when we were fleeing, we were divided into small groups, so yeah, to increase our chance of survival. So I would go with 3 children, then Chantal would go with 2 children, and sometimes children would go by themselves. So we moved around in 9 different places. So we all finished up being in the that small underground room, and imagine we were 10 in that small place, 2 meters by square, and we were 7 people of my family, and 3 more witnesses we found there in that house. And the house belonged to a Hutu witness who agreed to hide us for that time.
They were taking stunning risks to protect you. Your Hutu friends were, right? They were risking their lives in every way.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, as also my friends mentioned before. So yeah, they could be killed, and so they have to hide even to their family members that we were hiding there. So it was a big challenge.
And then, when you were finally liberated, what happened?
So yeah, that's another story. So we actually, the same incident we hid us for 1 month. We heard that the RPF had taken Butare, and he came to tell the friend who hosted us that the RPF had taken Butare, so we could send a message to them so that they may come and liberate us. So they sent 20 soldiers, and they helped us to get out of our hiding. So we used to call this hiding place our grave. So we came out of the grave, and people who saw us were amazed because our skin was pale, and we couldn't speak, we were just whispering. We had lost voices because we had been 2 months without speaking. So we couldn't even utter sounds, so we couldn't speak, and so we looked like white people because the skin was pale. So now, the RPF took us to a surviving camp, and there we could now wash because we have been not washing for 2 months. We could eat nutritious food, so we could rest and become humans again. But however, in the survival camp, there was a bad smell because of dead bodies around the place. So when we went out to look for firewood or for water, we would come across parts of human body rotting there. So it was terrible. Well, now, to sum up, between Chantal and I, we lost more than 100 people, relatives, in our close and extended family. She lost 2 brothers and their families. But also in our Jehovah's Witness community, we lost, out of 2,500 witnesses, we lost 400 people. So most of them were Tutsis, but also some Hutus were killed because they hid Jehovah's Witnesses or tried to help them.
Well, we're profoundly grateful that you got your voice back to share these important stories with us. So, Chantal and Darcy, thank you so much for sharing your story as well. So I am acutely aware of the time, and it is completely our fault for the technical difficulties and some of the challenges, and I need to apologize that unfortunately I do not believe we're going to be able to get to your questions tonight. You are welcome to stay afterward. We have a public reception, and to ask those, would you be willing, if people wanted to ask you questions during the reception as well, to potentially respond? Would you be willing? Okay. So I think we want to close by giving each of you one more chance to speak and to address the question of how you think this experience has changed you, and what you want the world to learn from the story you've shared with us tonight.
ibyabaye ntabwo jenoside yanciye intege maze kurokoka kubera ko ahubwo nagize imbaraga mu by'ukuri zo kugira ngo nkore ikinyuranye nanga ikibi ahubwo nkunda gukora icyiza.
After the genocide, I did not tire out. What I decided to keep on doing is to hate what is bad and do and love what is good.
Kandi ibyo mbikora nshaka kugira ngo nigisha ubutumwa bwa Bibiliya kugira ngo abantu bamenye neza mu by'ukuri icyiza cyangwa se urukundo nyakuri aho rushingiye n'uburyo umuntu yarugira.
And I do that by sharing with others the Bible's message and helping others to find out what is true love and how to cultivate that.
Ubutumwa rero nshobora gutanga ku bantu batuye isi.
So my message to the world would be this.
Iyo nsubije amaso inyuma nagiye mbona ukuntu abantu bakiri bato bagize uruhare mu kugira nabi, gukora ikintu kibi aho gukora icyiza mu gihe cya jenoside.
Looking back, I can see how in the genocide, youth were lured into doing what is bad and not doing what is good.
Kandi rwose urubyiruko cyangwa abantu bakiri bato ni urufunguzo rwo kugira ngo babe bashobora gutanga urumuri muri sosiyete y'abantu.
And definitely, youth is the key to the light of the future and of the community and the society.
Niyo mpamvu nafata urugero ngewe nkatanga urugero kugira ngo mu by'ukuri ngire urukundo mu bikorwa kandi wanatera abandi kugira urukundo, mbese nk'urwo umwigisha mukuru yavuze mu myaka 2000 ishize ngo ukunde mugenzi wawe nk'uko wikunda.
So that's what I've learned, to be myself an example of showing love through my actions and what I do. And as a great teacher has taught 2,000 years ago, to love your neighbor like you love yourself.
Ibyambayeho nanjye byampaye imbaraga z'uko ntagomba gucika intege.
I've learned through what I went through to not give up.
Igihe duhuye n'ibibazo, kubera kuko Imana ari ituzi irinda ubuzima bwacu.
When we're going through trials, because God knows us and He's protecting us.
Ubwo rero isomo naha abantu bose nuko ikintu cya mbere bagomba kugira ariko bagomba kwihangana ndetse no kubabarirana kuko n'Imana ubwayo itubabarira buri gihe.
So what I will tell everybody is to continue enduring and also forgiving others just as God forgives us every day. I've seen how far violence can go. And it was hard to forgive. But because I believe in God, I know that He knows our hearts and He's the one who will judge. So knowing that, it gives me comfort and gives me reason to continue living. And my message to everybody here, I am a parent, I have children. And a parent shows love. The message to the parents and everybody here is that they should teach their children to hate what is bad and love what is good and give them understanding. Like Charles said, in Rwanda, the youth were used to do the killing.
ubutumwa bwanjye ni uko.
So that was my message.
Yeah, so from my experience, I learned that, well, ordinary people were able to refuse to be manipulated by politicians to take weapons and kill humans, but rather they put their lives at risk to save our lives. Now, we may wonder why or how were these people able to do that? So they were able to do that because their conscience was trained to follow high moral standards, high moral principles. Now, the message to everyone here is just a question. So, are you prepared to sacrifice your life or to go out of your comfort zone to help your neighbor, even to go and save him if he's in danger? If you are able to do that, so you are just accomplishing what is in line with what the founder of Christianity said. Because he said, so there is no greater love than this, that someone would surrender his life to save his friend. So now, again, how far can my love, your love, go? So this is mine and yours to answer.
The voices are strong indeed, and the message of faith, a focus on the future, and it sounds like the limitless possibilities of love are really at the core here. And I'm really grateful, again, that you've all been willing to come and to share these stories. I know it is not easy. I know it takes a lot. And I know it's not cost-free. So I'm profoundly grateful to all of you for commemorating this with us. And I want to acknowledge Fidel as well, that your role in also telling these stories has been absolutely essential. And I know that must not have been easy either. So thank you. So please, everyone, join me in thanking and saluting these stories. So with that, we'd like to bring the formal program to a close. I invite you to join us in the lounge for a reception, to continue the conversation, to continue to meet your neighbors. And then I invite you to come back to the Dodd Center again for future programs. So thank you again for being with us tonight.